It's just going to be nasty like that. And Meghan's actually threatened that she's going to take out some sort of terrible thing if it does happen, that she won't allow that to happen. But we'll see what the fight is when it gets going. But they have pushed themselves so far. They have behaved so badly.
Let me tell you something. The mainstream media does not seem eager to say out loud. Tom Bower, the author who shook things up with his explosive book Revenge, has been sitting on claims and details that people are only now starting to seriously talk about. When you line up what Tom Bower has been saying for years with the growing public chatter around possible investigations and scrutiny involving Meghan Markle, from financial questions to broader legal discussions, you start to see a bigger picture forming. This situation is not just shaky anymore.
So he is at a loss, and that brings us obviously to the Angola thing, which is really a stunt. It's a pathetic stunt. You've got to look at the way that Harry has actually been badly advised, because after he lost that case in London against the British government to get armed protection,
it is starting to look like something much more unstable. Stick with me, because what you are about to hear could shift how you view this entire story. This is not just gossip floating around. It is a wave of questions that keeps getting louder and harder to ignore. Tom Bower did not just publish a book and walk away. He pushed open a door, and now more people are stepping through it, asking questions that many feel should have come up a long time ago.
The very aggressive PR for the Sussexes got way beyond herself, because she really doesn't understand the British royal family or Britain, but understands how to project her clients.
And when you look at the financial side, things get even more intense. Reports and estimates suggest the Sussex lifestyle runs at around £3 million a year, which is a massive number by any standard. Now add in what has already played out, major deals shifting or ending, mixed results from projects, and brands struggling to gain traction. And you can see why critics are raising eyebrows. The Netflix situation has changed, Spotify did not meet expectations, and other ventures are facing tough public reactions. So where is the money actually coming from? That is the question getting louder every day, with more people calling for serious financial scrutiny.
The royal family would not be coming to Harry's rescue. They would not be funding a divorce to any extent. And they, at this point, wouldn't really care what Meghan tried to say or do, because Meghan has so discredited herself as a liar, a cheat, and a fraud.
When income slows down, but spending stays sky high, people start asking questions. And in the US, that kind of attention can come from agencies like the Internal Revenue Service. But the money talk is only part of it. Harry's US visa situation has also been a topic many feel has not been fully explained over the past few years.
Prince William doubles down. According to multiple sources, it's now a matter of when, not if, he strips Prince Harry and Meghan Markle of their royal titles.
In his memoir Spare, he openly discussed past drug use, mentioning substances like cocaine, cannabis, and magic mushrooms, in his own words, and even in the audiobook version. That is something Tom Bower has repeatedly pointed out, stressing that Harry publicly stood by every word he shared. Now here is where things get complicated. Under US immigration rules, past drug use can be a factor in visa decisions, depending on the details and disclosures made during the process.
Even though, as I said before, like Harry and Meghan not following exact protocol kind of makes sense, you know? Harry and Meghan's children are unlikely to ever get anywhere close to becoming, first, second in the line of succession.
Yet Harry continues to live in Montecito, California, and the public has not been given full insight into how his case was handled. No detailed explanation, no clear transparency, just a lot of unanswered questions that keep people talking. Tom Bower has often argued that Harry and Meghan act as if standard rules do not fully apply to them, and that idea keeps fueling debate as more people look closely at the situation. For a long time, some people felt like the rules did not really catch up to them, but now the big question is getting louder every day.
I thought it was manipulation. I thought that it showed, firstly, Harry absolutely desperate.
Meghan Markle put out more and more content connected to her children.
How long can that actually last? Then there is the topic of child services, and yes, it makes people uneasy, but the conversation is happening anyway. The key point here is that these are being framed as questions, not accusations.
Something has to be done to preserve the future of the monarchy because Harry and Andrew are both massive risks, and it's a risk that needs to be assessed very quickly here. And I think definitely there could be a route forwards where their titles are stripped, and I think that's the only way to go. And I think the future in some ways can only be secured if they go in that direction. And so this will be a very bold move. It'll be one that definitely damages his relationship with his brother. I don't think there's much of a relationship between William and Andrew, but I think Harry and Meghan should be shaking in their boots right now if they are not already. And they could have had the best of all worlds if they had played their cards right. But this was a route Harry and Meghan decided to go down where they trashed their family, and this is the result.
People who claim to have looked closely at timelines, public records, and what has or has not been shared about Archie and Lilibet are pushing for clarity. And in 2026, those questions are not fading. They are getting harder for the public to ignore. Samantha Markle has also jumped back into the spotlight, and clips of her statements are spreading fast online. She has pushed back strongly against certain claims, making it clear she believes it is completely wrong and unfair to suggest the Markle family played any role in hiding details about Meghan's age. Speaking in a recent discussion, she laid out her version of events in detail.
Harry and mostly Meghan, it seems, are actually really obsessed with the titles. Meghan and Harry care a lot about those titles, and they say that they don't, but they clearly do. So what do you think about this whole thing? A lot of people think the birth certificate not having signatures and being changed, altered.
She explained, "I was 11 in 1975. We were still in Chicago at that time, and used that timeline to argue that the age gap rumors do not add up."
Breaking right now, the British royal family mired in one of its biggest crises in history.
Did Meghan Markle use a surrogate? That's been something posited literally for well over 3 years when it comes to her firstborn son Archie and even her daughter Lilibet. And many people even wonder, are their children even real?
She also pointed to school records, saying everyone can verify at the school where she started in pre-kindergarten in the mid-80s. According to her, she was born in 81. We know when she was born, she was a baby in our house. I went through Doria's pregnancy with her. These are statements she stands by, and they are now being widely shared and debated online. This is where Tom Bower's work gets pulled back into the spotlight again. He has long suggested that the story of how Meghan Markle met and entered Harry's world may not be as straightforward as many people were originally led to believe, and that idea continues to spark intense discussion. Think about what we are actually being told. The official version sounds simple, almost too simple. Two people meet through a mutual friend, everything clicks, and that is the love story.
But I don't think she's going to let the king be trapped into an argument with Harry.
You're right about that, yeah.
And he'd have to fly to Balmoral to see the...
Absolutely.
But I think it isn't just the trust, you know. I mean, Harry has made a fortune, and still does, from Spare and the Netflix series.
Absolutely.
And he said such terrible things about William and Kate and Camilla. I mean, he didn't say that. I mean, and there is another book there. There are another 400,000 words.
How many pages did he tell the Telegraph he removed from the original
400.
book because he didn't.
A few more.
So there's another book there with a lot of.
And Meghan told us she found her diary at Frogmore and she never signed an NDA.
I hear you, but I'm just, all I'm saying as a father, if you are going through what he's going through.
End of story. But more and more people are starting to question whether that version leaves out important details. There is growing talk that the media might finally be realizing there is a deeper story connected to Meghan Markle's past that has not been fully explored. Critics argue it is time for tougher reporting and more detailed investigation instead of repeating the same narrative over and over again. The pressure for answers is building, and people are paying closer attention than ever.
You know, he wanted his privacy. The problem you've got here in a relationship with Meghan and Harry is this is a boy that was pretty much traumatised by media presence when he was little. He didn't really want any of this publicity. He was always attacking photographers. She's someone, ever since she was on the red carpet, who's craved publicity. So this is a relationship.
And we can see it already, I think, the struggles and the tensions between, how do they move forward digitally in these sorts of things? Because I feel like we're seeing a slow adoption adoption of, let's say, some video and social media and these sorts of things. And so the monarchy is very much, I think, struggling to modernize in some way here more than some of its other counterparts.
Some believe that if new facts were clearly established, it could even influence how institutions respond, raising questions about titles, roles, and public positions. That is why researchers and commentators who have followed this for years are now speaking more openly about their doubts. One of the biggest talking points is whether that early Soho House meeting was truly sluchai or something more carefully arranged. And this is where things start to get even more interesting. In April 2026, the name Marcus Anderson keeps coming up again and again. Known for his strong connections within the Soho House circle, he has remained close to Harry and Meghan long after many others have faded from their inner circle.
It just seemed so silly for her to go, well, I just want to know if he's nice. Well, you don't, he's a prince. You don't want to know how that could benefit you, that he's a prince? It just kind of was just a little ridiculous for her to say that. And people, again, there was just kind of this lack of trust. You know, you go back to the wedding as well.
And I do think the Sussex overdrive is unbelievable. But I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in. I mean, I think that there are two reasons. One is I think that William wouldn't allow it. And secondly, the moment he got back to America, he immediately promoted Disney and his trip to Disney World, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
That alone has people asking questions. At the same time, Jessica Reed-Krause from House Inhabit claims she has been gathering information for years and says she has the receipts to back up her reporting. Her work has added another layer to the conversation, pushing more people to look into how certain introductions and connections may have happened. The big question now is simple but powerful. Who actually set that first meeting in motion?
Tom Bower, the legendary royal author, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. And this comes, by the way,
William is planning to act very decisively when he becomes king to take away the titles, the HRHs, once and for all from all non-working royals, which will have the silver lining for him of removing them from Harry and Meghan.
Because when you look at the network, the connections, and the timing, some observers believe there could be more strategy behind it than the public has been told. Even now, when so many people from their past have been pushed aside or completely cut off, one name still sticks around. Marcus Anderson has not faded away like the others, and that alone has people raising eyebrows. Tom Bower has pointed out that Meghan has been known to distance herself from a long list of former connections, so the question hits harder.
My understanding is that there are members of the family who are very aware of the fact that the marriage is problematic. I don't want to say more than that, I don't think. Has he been disloyal and bleated about her to anybody? I wouldn't have put it quite like that, but he does and also the family is not in close touch with him now. Even those members of the family who were closer to him are less in touch with him now than they used to be. And many of them will have nothing to do with him whatsoever.
Why is Marcus still in the picture? That is something people keep circling back to. Then there is the Mediterranean chapter of her life, which is suddenly getting a lot more attention. Old photos are popping up, timelines are being picked apart, and people are asking what exactly was going on in those years before she landed her role on Suits. It is a period that was not heavily discussed before, but now it is under a brighter spotlight than ever. Tom Bower has often focused on Meghan's ambition, describing it as intense and very calculated. He paints a picture of someone who always knew what she wanted and was determined to reach it. He even references a story from her childhood where she reportedly said, "Daddy, I want to do this. I want to be the star," while standing on a red carpet. That drive, according to him, did not suddenly appear. It had been building for years. And in an industry like Hollywood, ambition is nothing new. People with big goals often look for ways to enter influential circles and make connections that open doors.
Interview with Meghan Markle, but she remains a friend of Fergie. Certainly no friend of the British royal family, so she's a risk. But when it comes to a 10 million advance for a book from someone who's already written more than one autobiography, she is going to have to spill the beans, Angela, and that's where the fear from the British royal family comes from.
That is why this part of the story is now getting so much attention, as more people try to piece together how those early steps may have shaped everything that came later. Tom Bower has gone deep on this point, arguing that Suits was never the kind of platform that usually launches someone into global stardom. It was a solid show, respected in its lane, but not exactly a spotlight that turns someone into a household name overnight. And yet, somehow, Meghan ended up in elite circles, sitting inside a private members club across from a British prince. That jump is exactly what has people talking. Then comes the age debate, which adds another layer to the whole situation. Some commentators and online discussions have questioned whether her public biography tells the full story, while others strongly reject those claims. The key issue is that there has been a mix of responses from different voices, and that keeps the speculation alive instead of shutting it down. There are also persistent rumors tied to her past that continue to circulate online despite lacking verified evidence. These claims have been widely disputed, but they have not fully disappeared from public conversation, and for a long time, major outlets stayed away from these topics. But now, more commentators are at least acknowledging the discussions exist.
He preaches a lot about forgiveness. We heard him talk about open borders. Sometimes he's very kumbaya. And I wonder if he's trying to put his money where his mouth is by making peace with his son. Because how can we take him seriously when he's meeting with Ukraine and Trump and trying to make peace as a global leader when he's not even at peace with his son?
Well, I think I disagree with you about that, because Charles, when he was the Prince of Wales, was absolutely unforgiving to anyone who said no to him.
Oh.
And in my book on the King, the rebel King it's called, my best sources were people who'd worked for him, and he'd been absolutely ruthless when he fired them.
Oh.
He had absolutely no time for anyone who said no to him. So he's a man who hates confrontation.
Tom Bower's approach has always been to follow leads that others avoid, and that is exactly why his work keeps getting attention. Right now, those lines of inquiry are sparking debate and pushing uncomfortable questions into the spotlight. In a recent interview, Bower made another statement that got a strong reaction. He suggested that Catherine, the Princess of Wales, may have felt threatened by Meghan Markle at one point, and that idea alone sent waves through audiences and commentators alike. Here is what makes this so interesting. Tom Bower's audience usually backs him up on almost everything he says. But on this one claim that Catherine felt threatened by Meghan, the reaction flipped fast. The pushback was strong, loud, and nearly everywhere. People were not buying it so easily. At the same time, some argue there is a more layered way to look at it. Meghan brought a completely different energy into the royal space. She was outspoken, confident, and willing to challenge traditions that had been followed for decades.
And I'm sure William loves his father, doesn't want to think that his father isn't going to be around for, 10 to 15, 20 more years. William, to his credit, is very much trying to set up his future. And I think that's a really, really smart thing to do. He's very aware of that future. And I think that is definitely a great direction to go in, but one I think that'll be a big struggle as well as they sort of kind of balance this father-son dynamic.
When you think about this, right, William is going to be ruthless in what he sees as necessary changes to the British royal family.
She moved quickly, broke with expectations, and had a kind of media presence that grabbed massive attention right from the start. But here is where others strongly disagree with Bower's take. Catherine is often described as someone who does not react out of insecurity, but out of awareness. According to this view, she understood the situation almost immediately. Instead of feeling threatened, she may have seen Meghan as a complex challenge to an institution built on structure, patience, and long-standing expectations.
It was a disastrous management of a ridiculous, trivial thing. And I don't think they know how to handle part 2 of Spare or Meghan's diaries or what was going to happen the American prince and princess, Lilibet and Archie, starting to cause trouble as well, and being in competition with William's children.
Catherine had spent years preparing for her role, learning the system step by step. That meant understanding not just the public image, but the deeper responsibilities and pressures that come with it. So rather than being caught off guard, some believe she recognized early on that Meghan's approach was very different, and that difference could create serious tension within such a traditional environment. She had already put in the years of work. As Tom Bower himself pointed out, Catherine showed up on freezing days in places like Colchester, carried out royal visits in towns like Stockport, and handled the kind of quiet, unglamorous duties that rarely make headlines but keep everything running.
It's just the truth, and I will stick to reporting the truth, but I just want to be clear, this is not about William's respect for his father. It is about what he believes needs to be done in order to maintain the future of the British monarchy. Now, I know Tom Sykes is a very controversial figure in royal reporting circles, but he has been completely on this story from the start as well. And he is reporting very similar over the weekend, and I want to take you through this.
That is the side of the role most people never see, and she did it consistently. Then, Meghan entered the picture, and critics quickly argued that her approach looked very different. Some claimed she was not as interested in those traditional responsibilities, which immediately sparked comparisons and tension in the public conversation. From that perspective, what Catherine felt was not fear, it was frustration. The kind that comes from dedicating years to a role, only to see someone else approach it in a completely different way. It created a sharp contrast that people could not stop talking about. Tom Bower has also claimed that Meghan had very high expectations about her position within the royal family. That idea alone stirred intense reactions because it clashed with the long-established path Catherine has been on for decades. Catherine, after all, has known since her early adulthood that she would one day become queen. She has spent years preparing, adjusting her life, giving up privacy, and managing constant public attention. That level of commitment shaped how people view her role today, so when these two very different approaches collided, it did not just create headlines, it created a narrative that people are still debating right now. And through it all, Catherine maintained a steady and controlled public image, choosing patience over reaction.
Even if Harry and Meghan right now are earning their own money, that well is drying up. You've got to take the ability for them to damage the royal family in the future away, and you've got to do that now. You've got to do it swiftly. What's interesting, of course, is that the view is that by taking the titles away from Beatrice and Eugenie as well, he won't be making such a personal point to Harry and Meghan. Archie and Lily doesn't have one of these titles, for example.
Yeah, I agree with that. Zara does fine. She doesn't mind in the least. But I do think it's very difficult to have something torn away from you when your father and mother have behaved badly.
To April 2026, and the contrast people talk about has only grown stronger. Catherine is widely recognised on the global stage, while senior royals like William, Catherine, Edward and Sophie are receiving strong media attention. As a core group, the coverage has shifted and the spotlight is landing in very different places than it once did. And you can imagine how that shift in attention might land with Harry. So what do you make of all this? Then there is the financial angle, which critics keep bringing up again and again. Some claim that life in Montecito comes with massive costs, and questions are being raised about how sustainable that lifestyle really is over time. Tom Bower has been especially blunt on this, arguing that there has to be a limit and suggesting that pressure could build if income and expenses fall out of balance. There has also been ongoing public discussion about inherited wealth and long-term financial planning. While exact figures are not publicly confirmed, commentators often speculate about how far past resources can stretch when paired with high spending. That uncertainty keeps the conversation alive and adds another layer to the overall narrative. On top of that, media voices have started to shift their tone. Dan Wooten and others have pointed to reporting that questions whether everything behind the scenes is as stable as it appears.
which inevitably that will
Exactly.
happen. You know, you've got at the moment, we've seen from the Wimbledon pictures of Charlotte and this perfect family.
Fuming in Montecito.
And then on the other side, in Montecito, these kids are going to be growing up, they're first cousins, they're the American prince and princess.
Exactly.
And it's going to be America versus Britain. What's wrong with our, our prince and princess?
Exactly.
And there's going to be a row.
Well, they'll have to be at the Super Bowl, won't they?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But they won't be invited, which is Meghan's other problem.
Right.
She doesn't get invited to A-list parties.
But I
anymore.
reckon these young kids would be quite big, and that's why isn't she branded them already?
Yeah, they already have their own URLs.
I mean, and she writes a diary note to them every night or
She
something.
sends her emails. Well, to
But
your
that's
point.
quite nice for any books that they want to do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? It's actually very, very...
I've got an entire inbox that with mom stressing about how dad's looking through the bushes again, looking for photographers
my life
outside.
as an exiled princess, it's all there, ready to go.
These are still opinions and interpretations, but the fact that they are being discussed more openly is what stands out. What makes this even more interesting is that some figures who were once seen as supportive in media coverage are now taking a more critical stance. Outlets like People magazine and Us Weekly previously ran stories that leaned positive, including features where Meghan's friends spoke out publicly. Those moments shaped public perception at the time, but now the tone around the story feels noticeably different. Tom Bower often frames his arguments around facts, patterns, and outcomes. And as he suggests, sometimes the most impactful arguments are not dramatic claims. They are the numbers, the timelines, and the details that people can track for themselves. The latest YouGov polling, released around the centenary of Queen Elizabeth II, has sparked intense debate, and the numbers are grabbing attention fast. At the top, the late Queen still holds an incredible 81% positive rating. Princess Diana follows with 77%, Prince William at 76%, and Catherine close behind at 75%. Even King Charles, despite years of scrutiny and controversy, is sitting at around 60%, which many see as a strong position.
So I found that fascinating reporting, Angela, from Tom Sykes. Do you agree with what he's saying here? And is that why there is a certain arrogance from Andrew's circle saying, well, you can say all you want. You can say all you want. We're not going to America. We're never going to return to America, which means there's no way he can be dealt with in America. And the idea that he's going to be dealt with criminally in the UK is for the birds, because it would mean a king having to testify at the trial, which is impossible in our system.
Well, actually, in America, they're not allowed to actually give people the problem in another country.
But then the numbers take a sharp turn, and this is where the conversation gets heated. Prince Harry is reportedly around 30%, a huge drop from the days when he was one of the most popular figures in the royal family. Public opinion appears deeply divided, with a significant portion of people now viewing him negatively. Meghan Markle's numbers are even lower in these polls, often reported around 20%, which has fueled even more discussion online and in the media. Commentators like Tom Bower have pointed to these figures as evidence of a major shift in public perception. While his wording has been criticized by some as harsh, others argue the numbers themselves are what matter. They show a clear change over time that cannot be ignored. For additional context, other royals fall across a wide range. Princess Anne is often viewed positively, and Prince Edward tends to sit around the mid-range in public opinion.
Well, to your point about needing to get them to hush, I mean, is that what these potential secret summit meetings are about? Just
On the contrary,
desperation?
I think it is that the king, the Windsors here, don't know what to do about it.
But Harry's desperate, that's what you say.
Harry's desperate, but how do you reconcile that terrible history of him monetizing his disloyalty against the royal family, who are getting old and suffering cancer and all sorts of it, with finding some sort of way through? And I don't think there's anywhere in the palace, let alone in Whitehall, a genius official.
Queen Camilla's ratings are more mixed, reflecting ongoing public debate about her role over the years. What stands out most is the gap between the highest and lowest ratings. The contrast is dramatic, and it highlights just how much public opinion within the royal sphere can shift over time depending on events, narratives, and media coverage. Prince Harry at 30%. That number alone is enough to get people talking. There was a time when he was polling above 80% and even competing with the late Queen in popularity. Dropping from those heights down to 30% is a massive shift, and it is exactly why these polls are being discussed so heavily right now. Meghan Markle, often reported around 20%, sits even lower, though still above figures like Prince Andrew, who has extremely low approval ratings in most surveys. But here is where the debate gets intense. A 30% approval rating means a large portion of the public views Harry negatively, and many commentators argue that recovering from that kind of drop is extremely difficult. Whether that is truly unrecoverable is still up for debate, but the scale of the decline is hard to ignore. Looking at the wider picture, these numbers have real-world implications. Brands, media partners, and major platforms often pay close attention to public perception before making deals.
Very, very damaging to the institution and very, very damaging to the family as well.
And unfortunately, because Harry and Meghan go through so many employees so often, when the royal family does lose someone with a significant title, that is splashed all across the headlines. And that's probably news that they, instead of really investing in great people or trying to seek out those people, I wonder if they're just trying to avoid similar headlines.
Well, I don't think the trouble is that King Charles is a very poor employer because he only wants yes men.
Yes.
And that is a great problem. And he always has, as I explained earlier.
But doesn't he have that in common with Harry?
I don't think Harry makes the choices of the staff. I'm sure that's all done by Meghan.
Yes.
As they roll through them, it's her behaviour, her demands, which are fueling constant change.
When approval ratings fall this low, it can make partnerships more complicated and limit opportunities. That is just how the business side works. Tom Bower has been pointing to this trend for a while, arguing that public support and financial stability are closely linked. While not everyone agrees with his conclusions, his focus on patterns and long-term outcomes has kept his commentary in the spotlight. At the end of the day, these poll numbers are more than just statistics. They reflect how public opinion has shifted over time, and they continue to shape the conversation in a big way. It may seem like small steps, but something has clearly shifted. Now you have well-known mainstream media figures starting to bring up questions that were once avoided completely. And one moment that really caught attention was a commentator openly referencing rumors about Meghan's past and framing it as a direct question. That alone shows how the tone of the conversation is changing. But it is important to be clear, these claims remain unverified and widely disputed. Still, the fact that they are being mentioned more openly has people watching closely and asking where this all leads next. Tom Bower has been very direct about his predictions. He believes that when Prince William eventually becomes king, there could be major decisions ahead regarding titles and roles within the royal family. According to him, it would be a clean and decisive shift, but that is still speculation and not confirmed fact. He has also pointed to events like the Australia tour as moments that may have influenced how senior royals view the situation. Critics have argued that certain appearances came across as overly commercial, while others strongly disagree with that take. Either way, those events continue to be analysed as part of the bigger picture. The key question now is how all of this unfolds over time. With media narratives shifting, public opinion evolving, and commentators making bold predictions, the story is still moving and people are paying very close attention to what happens next.
I mean, he doesn't know what he needs, and that, you know, he is not educated to know that. I mean, here's a fellow with very poor exam results, the rest. So I wouldn't worry about it. She is very clever. Her problem is she's not clever enough. She lacks self-awareness. She doesn't realise.
Or believes she's too clever.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, that is a terrible dilemma to be in, that not recognising your own limitations. And so she's struggling the whole time. But it's, you know, the truth about Meghan is she will always find a way in which she thinks she can win. And the casualties are irrelevant, whether it's her father, her old best friends, her first husband. There always will be casualties in her life. The question is, when will Harry become the casualty?
Anyway, P. Diner, this whole Australian Gauze weekend situation has people talking for a reason. Critics are calling it a money-making move, especially with reports of a women-only retreat in Sydney priced at around $2,699 Australian dollars. That number alone is enough to raise eyebrows and spark debate online. At the same time, the bigger questions are not going anywhere. The financial scrutiny, the immigration discussions, and the ongoing curiosity about Meghan's past, from those Mediterranean years to how certain key connections were made, are all still being talked about. And in April 2026, those conversations are only getting louder as more mainstream voices begin to engage with topics that were once left to independent commentators. Tom Bower's work continues to be a major part of this discussion. His book pushed a narrative that challenged the official story, and whether people agree or disagree, it has clearly opened the door for wider debate. Now, that door is not closing anytime soon, because once these conversations hit a certain level, they take on a life of their own. So where does this all go next? That is the question everyone is watching closely. If this video got you thinking, make sure you hit subscribe, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. And do not miss the next video on your screen, because this story is far from over.